So Schumacher in pole position there on the left-hand side of your screen now. They are about to go away for this final green flag, the wave lap. Away they go. They're pulling around for a final warm-up lap. This is not, of course, the start. This is to enable them to get the car fully up to working temperature, to get themselves up to working temperature to an extent as well, but perhaps most importantly, so that it's to ensure that this kind of situation can't happen out on the track. And that looked like Heinz-Harald Frentzen stopped in his Sauber car. Now, had that been the real start, that car could have been left on the grid, as indeed we saw with the Leto incident at the start of the first part of the race. But by keeping the cars moving, by having this final green flag lap, it means that all drivers, certainly at this stage, have got their engines running. That's one of the Sauber mechanics there, going up to see if he can do anything about that. But I suspect the car's going to be pulled back out of the way, and we'll have to start the race, if indeed it can, from the pit lane.
It was, indeed it is, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who was going to be starting from fourth on the grid, and will now have to be starting from the back of the grid if he can get away. Meantime, on the second parade lap, Michael Schumacher leads Gerhard Berger and Damon Hill up towards the Variante Alta, the right-left at the top of the hill. Followed now that Frentzen is at the back of the grid by Mika Häkkinen, who has therefore moved up to fourth position. And that is Nicola Larini, who is following Mika Häkkinen. So into the Variante Alta. Schumacher, this is the parade lap. Berger, Damon Hill.
Just see Schumacher then just looking in his mirrors, the drivers all looking in their mirrors, checking who's behind. And you'll also note when they come around to take up their position on the grid, they will all be single file for as long as possible before ultimately moving across and taking their start positions. This is so that they can keep on the racing line, which is where the track is at its cleanest, and they do not want to spend any more time than they have to driving along on a dirty part of the circuit. Actually, we can just see there, fourth there is Mika Häkkinen. He's able to start very quickly indeed. So he made a great start, perhaps a bit too quickly at Japan, and we may well see a good start from him here.
The third start of the San Marino Grand Prix, the second standing start, because the second start was from a rolling start behind the safety car, with a new pole position man, Michael Schumacher, followed by Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill third, Mika Häkkinen fourth, Nicola Larini fifth, Karl Wendlinger in sixth position, followed by Katayama seventh and Martin Brundle in eighth position. Over 53 laps. And wheel spin from Schumacher's car, which allows Gerhard Berger to go into the lead in the Ferrari. Damon Hill is third, Mika Häkkinen is fourth, Nicola Larini in the second Ferrari is in fifth place, and Schumacher is already swarming all over the gearbox of the Ferrari, looking for a way past. But Gerhard Berger has not led a Grand Prix for a very, very long time. Damon Hill attacking Michael Schumacher on the left, and Berger will not be at all anxious to give way. Indeed, he leads up to the Variante Alta. It's still Schumacher second. Häkkinen has gone up into third place. Larini is fourth. Where is Damon Hill? He's dropping back. Damon Hill is dropping back. So Berger leads. Both the Williams have struck trouble. Damon Hill, there he is. We're with Damon Hill now. It looks to me as though he's already touring in, and it looks to me too as though both Williams are out of the race, and we're only on the seventh lap in all, the first lap of this restarted race. Häkkinen third, Larini fourth. In fifth position, it is Karl Wendlinger in the Sauber, and I think Damon Hill touched Michael Schumacher's Benetton as he tried to go through and take him on the inside. So now the battle at the San Marino resumed at Grand Prix as they come through to complete the first lap with the Tifosi. Absolutely euphoric is Gerhard Berger leading Michael Schumacher.
Yes, that certainly looked
and they're getting a new nose ready for Damon Hill's Williams.
Yes, that certainly looked a clean start there. It was good to see. Great start from Berger. Schumacher really should be able to find a way past the Ferrari, but don't forget the Ferrari has a lot of horsepower, considerably more than Schumacher, and that's going to make Berger difficult for Schumacher to place. That there is Hill into the pits.
Now let's see how long it takes to replace this nose assembly as Michael Schumacher continues to attack the Ferrari in front of him and endeavour to retake the lead that he held earlier on as they go into the Acqua Minerale. Now uphill towards the Variante Alta. Look at the crowded stand on the left. This is something that the Tifosi have not seen for a very long time in Italy. A Ferrari leading, and it's Berger. Now you can see the gap because Michael Schumacher and Berger are starting to pull away from the lower-powered McLaren Peugeot of Mika Häkkinen, who is in third place.
Yes, and that's Damon Hill now, who's just left the pits with what looked to be a new nose fitted to his car. Now Schumacher has really got to try and get, we can see this is the telemetry in fact from the Benetton of Schumacher. The blue trace is the RPM of the engine, and beneath that the green one, the gas, is basically accelerator pedal, throttle pedal.
Now this is really interesting because I remind you that fuel strategy could well decide this race. I hypothesized earlier on that Michael Schumacher might only make one fuel stop, whereas it's quite possible that the Ferrari will make two. In fact, certain that the Ferrari will make two.
Yes, and that was a possible overtaking spot we saw for Schumacher. He tried to keep in the toe of that Ferrari, but he really couldn't get up along, he certainly couldn't get alongside it. As we said, the Ferrari has considerably more power than Schumacher's Benetton. The Ferrari V12 engine reputedly giving 815 horsepower, but I'm sure the exact figures are unknown to anybody but Ferrari. But it's going to be a difficult situation for now for Schumacher to try and find a way by, because of course it's on that main drag. The main drag out of the start-finish chicane up to Tosa is where most of the overtaking gets done, at least under braking for it. And to be in the right position to have a chance to go by, Schumacher needs to be certainly right up behind the Ferrari, literally within 3 or 4 yards, and preferably with an overlap starting to come by.
Ferrari have had all sorts of understeer problems with this new John Barnard designed car, but they've produced a new nose assembly, a new front wing. They've changed the aerodynamics on the rest of the bodywork, and a lot of that understeer has been eradicated, and you can see the results as again Gerhard Berger goes past the start and finish point, past the crowded grandstand in the lead, and he has got Michael Schumacher right behind him. Häkkinen is now nearly 9 seconds behind this battle for the lead. In the second Ferrari, Nicola Larini is in. There he is, you just saw him come round the left-hander as up to, running very wide goes Schumacher.
No, Schumacher deliberately went wide there. He wanted to get a faster exit to that corner. He did so by coming in wide to try and get up alongside into the next one, Piratella. It didn't work. Frankly, it's a tall order. But what really Schumacher needs to do is to try and encourage Berger to come into that corner where that incident took place, tighter, so that Berger's exit speed is slower. Now then, if Schumacher can manage to dummy Berger into doing that, then that tactic of coming in wide to come out fast could pay dividends, and he could come up along the inside, the left-hand side, before Piratella.
The leaders are now 9.5 seconds in front of third place man Mika Häkkinen. Larini fourth, 2 seconds behind the McLaren. Wendlinger is fifth, Katayama is sixth, and there's news from Steve Ryder.
Yes, an update on Ayrton Senna's condition from the pit lane, albeit a rather non-committal one, as it's bound to be. He's received injury, undoubtedly a serious one. He's been taken to the intensive care unit of the Maggiore Hospital in Bologna, and any further news will come from there. So Ayrton Senna being treated for a serious head injury, and now the Williams team are going to try and turn their thoughts and concentrate on what's happening in this race.
Thank you, Steve. And we ride with Michael Schumacher chasing race leader Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari.
Now watch Schumacher's left thumb on that button just to his right of that left thumb. He should move it across there, hits the button. What he does by that is trigger an automatic down chain sequence right down to second gear, and that's what he needs for that corner.
Now I'm afraid the results and positions in this race are going to be a bit complicated to communicate to you now as you watch the footwork chased by the Minardi. But I'm going to give you results on aggregate as well as the second race that you're looking at, and I'll tell you that at the present moment Schumacher is still 1.4 seconds in the lead on the combined race so far, the first part and this second part. But if he can keep Gerhard Berger in sight. That lead will be maintained, provided the gap doesn't increase very much. But in this second leg, it's Berger in the Ferrari. It is Schumacher in second place. Mika Häkkinen is 10.7 seconds behind them on aggregate, and he's 2 seconds ahead of Larini, who is fourth. Wendlinger is fifth. Katayama is sixth in the Tyrrell, in the points in the Tyrrell Yamaha. Gianni Morbidelli is seventh. We're riding with Michael Schumacher round the Tamburello at 190 miles an hour. Speed still building to 200 miles an hour, up to just over that. And then it's down through the gears to second gear to a minimum speed of 55 miles an hour. Round the left-hander at the Tosa here, and again Michael runs wide, cuts across to the left, closing up a bit on Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. That's Häkkinen. There is Larini in fourth place, Wendlinger in fifth place, Katayama is sixth. That is Christian Fittipaldi, who is seventh. And behind Fittipaldi, his teammate Morbidelli is in eighth position, and Johnny Herbert is having a battle with Mark Blundell, followed by Martin Brundle. So it's a tremendously exciting all-action race behind the leaders, who are giving us a tremendously exciting all-action race of their own at the front. And here it is. Berger leads. Schumacher second. Look back. Schumacher leading on aggregate by 1.5 seconds. And this is the 11th lap in the total race of the two parts.
Yes, it's going to be difficult for Schumacher to get by. I really think that the Ferrari certainly does not handle as well as the Benetton. It has to run very stiff. You can see the Ferrari jiggle around. It looks nervous, it looks darty. That's because it's running a stiff suspension setup to try and keep the car at a constant attitude, a constant ride height off the road to try and help its aerodynamics. Again, it looks like Schumacher is not close enough here. Again, it's only on the straights when you can have a chance to come alongside and get by. He will probably try his wide line again here coming into Tosa. He's not close enough, I really don't think, to try the inside. Berger goes to the inside, blocks the inside. Schumacher goes wide. He's closing now, you see, momentarily. But again, I think that Ferrari horsepower is enough to power the Ferrari up the hill and keep ahead. And that's the problem that Schumacher's going to have, and it might just be that we'll have to wait until the first fuel stop before he can get by. Of course, Schumacher being hopeful that Berger will make a mistake.
But Mika Häkkinen has got exactly the same problem with Nicola Larini, who is right behind him. Mark Blundell attacking Herbert. Frentzen is coming up through the field in the second Sauber, and down to the left-hander at the Ravazza. That's David Brabham, who is racing on in the sole Simtek in this race as Schumacher continues to attack Berger. Now, Gerhard won't be happy to be leading this race in the circumstances that he's leading it, but if anybody can keep the Ferrari in front, it is the very, very determined and enormously experienced Austrian. He's got 8 Grand Prix victories behind him already, for Ferrari and for McLaren, because this is the second time around for Gerhard Berger for the Maranello team.
Berger lapping in 1 minute 25.0, Schumacher 24.9, whereas Damon Hill, with a clear bit of road in front of him after that pit stop, has just set the fastest lap so far of a 1 minute 24.3. So Schumacher being held up a great deal. Now Schumacher he had a go at the outside line. Can he go for the inside? No, Berger's really making his Ferrari pretty wide. Now let's see how he does it this time. I don't think again that he can get enough of a run up at Berger here to be able to get by alongside that all-important Piratella. But it does look, however, that Berger is struggling increasingly to keep Schumacher behind, so it may well be only another 2 or 3 laps before the eventual ultimate result happens.
Well, if Michael Schumacher could just stay as close to Gerhard Berger as he is at the moment, and he's going through. Michael Schumacher darts through at the Acqua Minerale and takes the lead in the second part of the race, and he already had it on aggregate, of course, and now we can expect to see him pull away, because it looks to me as though the Ferrari handling is slightly suspect compared with the Benetton. Indeed, you can see the gap that's already built up. Now, here it is, Berger behind Michael Schumacher as they come up to the Variante Alta chicane.
What must have happened there was that Berger must have either missed a gear. Pitting.
Already, Michael Schumacher into the pits. Now, why is this happening? We certainly didn't expect this to happen as early as this. Is this a routine stop? Yes, it is, because in goes the fuel and changing the tyres. About 9 seconds is a very good pit stop for fuel and tyres. 10.1 seconds, and Michael Schumacher boils out of the pit lane on new tyres with refuelling completed, and Gerhard Berger is certainly leading now, not just the second leg, but also the whole race on aggregate. Now this is Schumacher's, we're riding with Schumacher now. There's the Ferrari ahead.
Yes, and this is one corner before we know Schumacher got by the Ferrari, so he's coming up, accelerating to 170 miles an hour, down to second gear. Oh, what a shame. I thought we might just see how he actually managed to get by Berger. But very interesting that Schumacher has stopped. Now, he's stopped on actually lap 14 there from the original distance, and it could well be that had Schumacher been intent upon a three-stop strategy, that would be stopping after lap 15. So it could well be that he was really fixed into that routine, a three-stop strategy, whereas Berger will probably go on till lap 20.
Well, Gerhard Berger is on his 14th lap in the full double race, as it were, and he's now leading Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren Berger. We're riding with Martin Brundle, actually, and he's in 11th place, but Mika Häkkinen is 11 seconds behind Gerhard Berger, and Michael Schumacher is in third position, the same time, almost behind Mika Häkkinen, just over 11 seconds, with Nicola Larini in fourth place, Wendlinger in fifth. Here's Berger leading the second leg very comfortably, but remember, he's leading very comfortably as a result of the man who had retaken the lead, Michael Schumacher, having gone in and refueled and taken on new tyres. So Berger will be at 10/10 now, endeavouring to ease away with a clear track in front of him, so that when he comes in and refuels and changes tyres, as of course he will, because the Ferrari V12 is much thirstier than the Ford V8 in Michael Schumacher's car, Berger would hope to get back with Schumacher or even in front of him after his pit stop.
Yes, but Berger still being out means that Schumacher did start this race with less fuel in than Berger, and of course that's one of the reasons why he would have been able to go faster. He should have been able to go a little bit faster anyway, although Berger and the Ferrari were within 0.3 of a second during qualifying. The situation we're looking at here, with Berger well out in front, of course is not entirely representative of the pure pace of the Ferrari, although it undoubtedly is going. And Berger very shortly afterwards going in. Now it still looks like they could both be on three-stop routines. This is fascinating. We did not expect them to make three stops. It looks like that's the case now. The pit stop should be pretty quick, maybe 6 or 7 seconds.
Yeah, and remember that Schumacher's time was about 10 seconds, and that's a sparkling stop. Berger has gained about 3 seconds on the pit stop. Now there's Schumacher in the background, and Berger is still in front of him as he got out of the pits, and we're watching now Mika Häkkinen against Nicola Larini in the second Ferrari, followed by Wendlinger in the Sauber.
Yes, now that stop was quick. It was about 6 or 7 seconds, and it was that fast because the Ferrari mechanics didn't put a great deal of fuel in that car, and that almost certainly means he will be back into fuel by lap 30. This is definitely a three-stop routine from Berger, but we don't know yet about Schumacher, but it's most likely to, I have to say.
And while we're looking at the screen, we're also watching the computer to give us the corrected positions as you watch the Häkkinen in the McLaren, Larini in the second Ferrari, Wendlinger in the lead Sauber, because his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 4 places behind him, battling now for second place on aggregate. Here's Mika. Tremendously determined, forceful driver. He's coming through to complete the lap because he's coming into the Traguardo, which is the left and the right. Now accelerating, and Häkkinen runs very wide, right onto the hard shoulder, as it were, as he comes down the finish straight, and he's pulling away from Larini now. Indeed, on aggregate now, you are watching the race leader, because having taken everything into account, Schumacher's stop and Berger's stop, it is Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren Peugeot, and in only their third race, the new combination of McLaren and Peugeot with the French V10 engine are leading a Grand Prix.
It may well be a temporary boost, but nevertheless, I'm sure that's going to be much appreciated by McLaren and by Peugeot. Hakkinen really doing a pretty good job fending off Larini there, who's got a lot more horsepower, undoubtedly. The McLaren team, having had some problems with the fact that the Peugeot engine has, at this stage of its development, tended to run rather hot. They've been madly trying to get more cooling from the car, putting on radiator exit ducts, and we have to hope that the car can stay reliable throughout, because Hakkinen this time certainly looks on a front-running pace.
Now, Michael Schumacher has got ahead of him. It looks, yeah, it's Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork Ford, who has not, of course, stopped to take on new tyres and to refuel as Schumacher has. And Schumacher on aggregate now is in second position, although he's still got to get past Fittipaldi in this race.
This really will be quite a headache for Schumacher. They have the strategy of diving into the pits for this field so that the car can continue to lap fast, and that advantage can be completely undermined by coming out of the pits behind slower traffic like Fittipaldi there. And if he can't make advantage of that lightweight very quickly, and he really wants to have a go up the inside now, yes, he's going to come by Fittipaldi, then he's got the by Fittipaldi there, and looks like that's Berger.
That's Berger. He's out of the race. Gerhard Berger retires from the San Marino Grand Prix. Well, he's led it, but in circumstances that he wouldn't like. Meantime, I can tell you that the Williams people are preparing for Damon Hill to come in. He's way down the field in 17th place after that nose cone replacement, and Michael Schumacher is slicing his way through. Remember that Gerhard Berger, who had taken the lead from the young German, has now retired from the San Marino Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher, I think, will soon be back in front on aggregate. He's about 1.3 seconds behind Mika Hakkinen on this, the 18th lap in total, as Schumacher comes up to catch Ukio Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha, followed by Fittipaldi, who Schumacher has passed. And Schumacher is followed, Fittipaldi is followed by Wendlinger. And out of the race goes Olivier Beretta, the ex-Formula 3000 French driver who is in the Larousse Ford at this time. And there's going to be a lot of retirement still to come, I'm sure.
Schumacher needs to get by Katayama. Katayama's Tyrrell really going very well these days. Again, it's for sure holding Schumacher up. He won't, I don't think, matter in the ultimate result, but at this stage it will be a frustration to him. Meanwhile, we've got Hakkinen and Larini, who I suspect will be on a two-stop routine. There are yellow flags there for Beretta. Nothing to worry about there. There's Hakkinen. He and Larini behind, just gone into the picture, will be on two-stop routines, which will probably mean pitting this lap, next lap, certainly within the next three.
Yes, and as you watch Michael Schumacher, who's made his pit stop, and we're riding with him now, close up on Yukio Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha, I have to tell you again that this race is running late as Damon Hill leaves the pit, having refueled, running very late indeed, because it was stopped after a massive accident involving the then race leader Ayrton Senna in his Williams Renault, as a result of which Senna had to be helicoptered to hospital. We understand he has a head injury, and we are waiting for further news. But that is Mika Hakkinen, who had led the race on aggregate, and that means that Schumacher is back now in charge of the San Marino Grand Prix on his 20th lap. Larini, that's him, is in second position in the Ferrari. Katayama, who's just being passed by Schumacher now, who leads the race, is in third position.
Interesting how it took a full lap for Schumacher to find a way past the Tyrrell. The Tyrrell using the Yamaha engine, which was, if not much maligned, it certainly wasn't regarded with particularly high esteem last year. Oil flag out there, the red and the yellow oil flag, probably from Beretta's incident there. Schumacher pulling away quite quickly from the Tyrrell, but it just goes to show you how much somebody can get held up, and it's all very well preparing these strategies of 2 stops, 3 stops, but it's very difficult to make allowances for traffic, for being held up and using the advantage that one really needs to get out of it.
Well, we know that the Benetton is reliable. We know that the new Ford engine is good. We know that Michael Schumacher is an extremely mature driver, notwithstanding his comparatively youthful age of 25. and he's now in charge on aggregate, leading Nicola Larini in the Ferrari, who has yet to come in for his pit stop by 1.7 seconds. So when Larini comes in, as surely he will, there he is, it will extend the gap between him and Schumacher, who is closing up on the Ferrari now. And if you find this strange, that Schumacher should be in the lead when there's a Ferrari in front of him, I remind you that it's a two-part race, having been stopped on the 6th lap of the first part when Michael Schumacher was chasing Ayrton Senna, who crashed. And there's the German in the Benetton Ford, going through, changing his line at the very last moment to pass Eric Bernard, the Frenchman in the Ligier Renault. And incidentally, for those of you who are interested in the politics of racing, as you watch Larini with the gap between himself and race leader Michael Schumacher diminishing rapidly, as far as we know, the negotiations between Benetton's Flavio Briatore and the French Ligier team for Briatore to buy it outright are still proceeding. The assumption being that the Benetton team want Renault engines, which are being used by Ligier as well as Renault, and about the only way they're going to get them is to buy the team.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad thing for Ligier if that happened, I don't think, because they couldn't really be doing an awful lot worse. They really are squandering the tremendous potential advantage that those Renault engines should have. They are to the same specification as, certainly more or less, as those that Williams enjoy. They are 3 seconds a lap slower, and I'm quite sure that they could be put to better effect.
Now, down to Rivazza and on and up now towards the Variante Alta, out of, they go.
Schumacher now closing on the Ferrari of Larini, although I would think that Larini must be on the verge of stopping. If that wasn't the case, then Schumacher may find himself losing a little more time, as he did with Berger, being slowed by the Ferrari, its horsepower again making up for its lack of grip.
Lap 22 in the combined race. Schumacher, that we're riding with now, is chasing the second place man, because Schumacher had a lead in the first race. Larini, I would expect to be coming into the pits very shortly to refuel and take on new tyres in the Ferrari. He's 4 seconds behind Schumacher on aggregate. And Fittipaldi, Christian Fittipaldi, is in a podium position. He's in 3rd place at the present moment in the Footwork Ford, 20 seconds behind Michael Schumacher and 1 second ahead of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren Peugeot. 5th is the Sauber of Frentzen, 6th is the second Sauber of Karl Wendlinger. Katayama is down to 8th. Morbidelli in the second Footwork Ford is in 9th position, followed by Pierluigi Martini and Mark Blundell.
We said this is going to be a race of attrition, or certainly historically the Imola Grand Prix have been a race of attrition, and it looks like we're going to see some relatively unusual teams and drivers in the top 6 at the end.
Now watch the gap diminish between the Ferrari of Nicola Larini, 2nd place, and race leader Michael Schumacher behind him in the blue and green Benetton. Schumacher calmly and methodically reeling in Larini. Excellent drive by the Italian.
You can see, looking at the telemetry there from the RPM, that the blue trace of RPM only really goes down a lot below 15,000, and in fact round about 7,500 revs when he goes down to 2nd gear. Providing Schumacher is 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th gear, he's keeping that engine right at the top of its power band. Larini going around for another lap, not stopping yet. This is a little surprising.
Now this is where I expect Schumacher to get past the Ferrari, although the Ferrari has got a power advantage which is going to help it on this part of the course. This is the quickest and longest part of the course. They're on full throttle for about 20 seconds from the time they leave the right-handed Traguardo until they come up to the left-handed Tosa, down to about 50. And through on the inside goes Michael Schumacher, race leader on aggregate. And so you're now looking at the true positions. Schumacher leading, Larini second, 6 seconds behind, but he's got to come in, and that is Frenson's Sauber in the pits. And Frenson was in 8th position on aggregate. Schumacher now easing away from Nicola Larini. And although it's still early days in this 53-lap second leg of the restarted San Marino Grand Prix, it is already looking as though Michael Schumacher has got to just pace himself home to his 3rd consecutive victory. When he won in Japan, the Pacific Grand Prix, that's Mika Häkkinen, who is 3rd on aggregate. The McLaren Peugeot is going well. When Schumacher won in Japan, it was the first time he had won 2 races in succession. It looks as though here in Italy today, he may make a new record for himself by winning 3 in succession. But as I said, there's a long way to go.
Damon Hill up to 12th place now after that stop to change his nose. And of course he came in for tyres and fuel. Hill being pretty happy actually with his setup yesterday when I spoke to him, which was not the case on Friday. The Williams has been really pretty tricky to drive on the limit, difficult to set up perhaps for the first 2 races, and for this race the team have developed a new nose, a new front wing assembly to make the car less sensitive to set up, to make it easier to drive, providing more confidence, and it certainly seems from qualifying and indeed what we're seeing from Damon Hill, because I think he's still set the fastest lap of the race. It's working here.
David Brabham is still running in the Simtek. He's just been passed by Nicola Larini, and on this, the 25th lap, Schumacher is leading the car you're looking at, Nicola Larini's Ferrari, by 8.5 seconds, ahead of Häkkinen 3rd, Wendlinger 4th, Katayama 5th, and Morbidelli is in 6th place. British drivers, Mark Blundell is 9th in the Tyrrell Yamaha, Martin Brundle is 10th in the McLaren Peugeot. Damon Hill has come up from 17th to 12th as Martin Brundle goes through, and he's having a battle with Pierluigi Martini's Minardi. And actually Brundle is... I'm sorry, I know this is confusing for you, but whilst Brundle is just behind Martini on the road, he's actually ahead of him on aggregate, and that is Bertrand Gachot overcooking things at the Acqua Minerale right in the Pacific car. He was the only one to start because his teammate Paul Belmondo did not qualify again. We're watching Berger pulling away. Now there is Bertrand Gachot. It looked to me as though he had... I just saw the car jerk and thought maybe he'd still got the engine running and installed it, but it was the marshals pushing him. So there's another retirement. Out goes Bertrand Gachot, and the Pacific team have yet to finish a Grand Prix. They've had 6 tries, 2 drivers in Brazil, 2 drivers in Japan, 5 tries, 1 driver at San Marino. And Michael Schumacher pacing himself away at the start. That's Häkkinen. Now the gap on aggregate between Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren Peugeot in 3rd place and Nicola Larini in the Ferrari, who, as far as I know, has not come in. And that is Martini touching wheels with Mika Häkkinen, trying to go, and that was very, very lucky indeed that he managed to keep it running at the Tosa.
Lucky for Martini, but also lucky for Brundle, it has to be said, because he came very close indeed to taking out Brundle with him, and that would have been definitely not something that Martin or the McLaren team would have appreciated. Martini there coming up the inside, having a look, and I think just got a bit sideways under the braking, but fortunately both managed to carry on. Now here we are, here's the replay. Martini on the outside, braking hard, up the inside, just touched. Brundle leaving a little bit of the door open. Bit of a racing accident there, really, I think, but Martini really coming up the inside without enough room to do the job, and the room that Brundle had given him there.
But he's certainly not an inexperienced driver. He's driven in nearly 100 Grand Prix, as Pierluigi Martini. And Martin Brundle's had his share of problems since he joined the McLaren Peugeot team, because he was innocently involved in Brazil in the multiple collision between himself, Bernard, Verstappen and Eddie Irvine.
As we watch Larini, it would seem that the Ferrari have taken the decision to go for just a one-stop routine. We're on lap 26 of this race now, of the complete aggregate race, and one assumes that he's going to be coming in around about lap 30. These stops do have to be pre-planned in terms of when they're going to be positioned in the race distance, because the exact amount of fuel has to be calculated and worked out beforehand.
Well, there you saw Martini's car being attended. He's obviously come in for a check after making contact with Martin Brundle's McLaren Peugeot. And if Larini is, of course, going through on a one-stop strategy, which would surprise me with the V12 very thirsty Ferrari, and Michael Schumacher that we're looking at in the lead now is going to stop twice, that will close things up when Schumacher comes in. But you can get into and out of the pit lane pretty quickly here at Imola, and it wouldn't have as dramatic effect as it might do at some of the circuits where you have to slow right down and take a long route into the pit lane. But it could mean that Larini is right up with Schumacher after the second Benetton Ford fueling stop, if there's going to be one. And I'm sure there is, because if you remember, Schumacher had a very short stop of about 7 seconds, so they couldn't have put enough fuel in then to last him the rest of the race.
Indeed, further to that, Schumacher is lapping substantially faster than anybody else in the field, 24.8 at the moment. That's at least 1.5 seconds from anybody else. Damon Hill, there we have Blundell up the inside there of Frentzen, and back to...
So there is Schumacher. He is behind Andrea De Cesaris in the sole Jordan Hart car. De Cesaris in 15th place on aggregate, and De Cesaris is chasing Olivier Panis, the French Formula 3000 European champion of 1993, and neither of them, they're both very involved with their own battle, and Schumacher in a masterly move takes both of them. De Cesaris follows through, gains a place from Olivier Panis, who was probably a bit rattled by suddenly seeing Schumacher on his left the door open. Andrea De Cesaris, an enormously experienced Grand Prix driver, because I know it's a cliche, but he is the man who's driven in more Grand Prix than anybody without winning one. This is his 198th race, and he took advantage of that experience to get past Panis's Ligier Renault. And this is a battle between Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren Peugeot, and behind him Carl Wendlinger, who had a lot of trouble in the Sauber Mercedes V10 powered car, getting his car set up for this race. He was well down the grid order on Friday's qualifying period. He got the car going well in the second qualifying period on Saturday. He was 4th fastest in the warm-up today, and that's beginning to show. And there's no doubt about the fact that Carl Wendlinger, the Austrian, has got more power in his V10 Mercedes engine than Mika Häkkinen has in his V10 Peugeot engine. And I would expect Carl Wendlinger to get past Häkkinen and move up to 3rd position on aggregate. It is that close. And into the pits now, the Ferrari of Nicola Larini. So that is lap 30 that he stopped on. Gets away well. He was 23 seconds ahead of Häkkinen on aggregate, and out of the race goes David Brabham. Well, he was a brave young man to start this race. At one point it was thought that he would just do one lap and then come into the pits, but he's obviously decided courageously to go on and retires on lap 30. Which will have given heart to the Simtech team and enable them to get some more mileage onto this brand new car, as Michael Schumacher carries on his potentially victorious way with a clear circuit in front of him, a clear circuit behind him. Nicola Larini is coming now. That's Frentzen. That's Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber, was in 8th position, and he's gone down to 10th place now as a result of that pit stop, and into the pits again comes Schumacher.
We expected that. This is confirmation of the 3-stop routine for Benetton. He should be in, if it's a good stop, for perhaps 7 seconds in total, which we'll have to see. They're changing tyres, as we would expect. Fuel going in, comes off. We haven't got the stopwatch there, unfortunately, but a good clean stop. really Schumacher has got the race, providing he stays reliable, pretty much under control. Meanwhile, what we would like to see is progress on Damon Hill, because Damon is now up to 10th place. He's charging hard. He's taken 2.5 seconds a lap off Pierluigi Martini in his Minardi, and that's soon going to put him right into a fairly major area of battle that's going on. So we could yet see a very good result from Damon Hill.
And the relative positions and gap between Larini, who is second that you're looking at, and Michael Schumacher, who is leading that you were just looking at, has remained much the same. They've both now had... Schumacher's had his second stop, Larini's had his first stop, where on lap 31, Schumacher came in with about a 29-second lead. So you subtract about 9 seconds for the time he's stationary. You have to take off a bit more time for the slowing down period from when he turned off the course into the pit lane, and the accelerating period from when he left his garage up to getting up to racing speed again. But the overall effect is that Michael Schumacher is still about 20 seconds, rather more than 20 seconds, ahead of Nicola Larini. They're on their 31st total lap from both parts, and Schumacher has just lapped Olivier Panis in the blue Ligier with the white wing. He is in 14th position. And the race order on aggregate, I emphasise, on lap 31, and this is a 53-lap second part, and you watch Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who has rejoined the race, attacking Johnny Herbert and passing the Lotus. The race order is Michael Schumacher leads, potentially on his way to a third consecutive Grand Prix victory. This man, Nicola Larini, by 21.5 seconds. Mika Häkkinen is 5 seconds behind the Ferrari in third place on aggregate. Carl Wendlinger is only 4 seconds on aggregate behind Häkkinen. Katayama, the Japanese driver in the Tyrrell, who has finished in the points already this year, 5th in Brazil, is 5th here. And in 6th position, Gianni Morbidelli, followed by his teammate, Christian Fittipaldi, both in footwork Ford cars, 6th and 7th. Martin Brundle is in 8th position in the second McLaren Peugeot, and everybody up to Brundle has been lapped by Michael Schumacher, including Damon Hill, who is a lap behind the leader now, but I remind you, gaining all the time after a pit stop, and he's going very, very quickly indeed. Indeed, Damon Hill's last lap was done in 1 minute 24.79 seconds, compared with Schumacher's 1 minute 28.4. And here is Larini. It's a race of potential drama at the end of it, although sadly we've had more than enough of that already. As Larini comes through to complete another lap, the Ferrari sounding strong and certainly powerful and looking good. Gerhard Berger already out of the race, having led it, and that was the first time a Ferrari had been in the lead since Jean Alesi led a race. And I haven't mentioned Alesi yet. Nicola Larini, that we're looking at now, is driving in the second Ferrari because Jean Alesi had a very nasty accident in testing at Mugello, damaged his neck, and has sensibly decided to stay out of racing, as did JJ Leto, until his neck is really good and strong again, as a result of which Larini took his place in Japan, has taken his place here, although we hope that Jean Alesi, the tremendously popular French Sicilian charger, will be back in the second Ferrari at Monaco in 2 weeks' time.
Larini certainly doing a very good job indeed, but on past form one would expect Alesi to have been quicker, certainly, or as quick as Berger. But since the last Grand Prix in Japan, there has been, although it's settled down now, a bit of controversy about the Ferrari team, because it transpired that following the first practice session, that's not the official qualifying session, but the practice session on the Saturday at Aida for the Pacific Grand Prix, the Ferrari came to the FIA and volunteered the fact that they had developed a form of power modulation device in which it is not strictly a traction control device, but nevertheless a mechanism in which, and that looks Schumacher being squeezed there.
Now, Andrea De Cesaris, who's just being passed by Michael Schumacher, is battling for 12th position on aggregate, for 11th position on aggregate with Johnny Herbert, and De Cesaris has got ahead of the Lotus, and as I said earlier on, they were both occupied with their battle and not too exercised about letting Schumacher through, but he's got past.
Indeed, yes, back with Ferrari, but Ferrari did try in the first practice session on the Saturday at Japan a system in which the power output of the engine was reduced in the lower gears as a method of trying to prevent the wheels ever starting to spin. They went to the FIA or FISA, who deemed that that system was not permitted and therefore it was not run further, but it certainly was a rather controversial thing to do, although it seems to be well under control now.
News of the two Williams drivers. We have no more specific news about Ayrton Senna, who was removed to Bologna Hospital by helicopter after an enormous crash on the 6th lap, after which the race was restarted. Damon Hill, who had to come in and have a nose cone replaced after touching Häkkinen at the 3rd start, because the first start was the normal one, the second start was from behind the pace car, the 3rd start was from a standing start, and you're watching the continuation of that now. Damon Hill hit Häkkinen and had to come in for a new nose cone, and as a result of all the tyre changes and refuelling, there is certainly no question of Damon Hill not being on the same lap as the leaders now, although he's 1 minute and 12 seconds behind on a lap that's taking about 1 minute 26 seconds, which is Schumacher's time. Schumacher is leading on lap 34 by 24 seconds from Nicola Larini, and as a matter of interest, the lap record here is held by Riccardo Patrese, 1992, in the Williams Renault, 1 minute 26.1, when the car had the initial active suspension and other goodies that Williams were using. And so Schumacher has just broken the lap record officially. He's just gone round in 1 minute 26.062, which is about a tenth of a second faster than the previous lap record.
That previous lap record being set 2 years ago, because last year the weather conditions were variable, it rained for much of the race, and that's why it was not broken last year. But what's interesting too is that despite this year's regulations removing active suspension, removing traction control, and not reducing the downforce a great deal, the cars this year are in fact faster, and that the pole position from Senna was a 1:21.5. That was half a second faster this year, despite those benefits, than the cars had in 1993, or rather than pole position in 1993.
Schumacher has just smashed the lap record again, 1 minute 24.4 compared with the previous lap record 1:26.1. But the second fastest man on the track is Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the retired and refueled Sauber Mercedes. He's gone round in 1 minute 25.4. That's a second slower than the man you're watching, Michael Schumacher. And there's a tremendous battle between Nicola Larini for second place with Mika Häkkinen. Larini is 5 seconds on aggregate in the Ferrari ahead of the McLaren Peugeot of Mika Häkkinen. So for the second race in succession, the new partnership of McLaren and Peugeot are in the top 3 positions. It was Martin Brundle in the Pacific Grand Prix in Japan. It's Mika Häkkinen in the San Marino Grand Prix in Italy. And the race order on lap 36 on aggregate, Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford, there he is, leads Nicola Larini's Ferrari by 27.3 seconds. Third is Mika Häkkinen, 32 seconds behind the leader. Fourth is Wendlinger, 39 seconds behind the leader. Fifth is Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha, an excellent drive, 45 seconds behind the race leader that you're looking at. Fittipaldi and Morbidelli in the Footwork Fords are 6th and 7th. Martin Brundle is 8th. Damon Hill is 9th, a long way behind Brundle. Into the pits comes Carl Wendlinger from 4th position, and this will give Fittipaldi the opportunity to move up into 4th position, and that's a good stop, just on 9 seconds. But it looks to me as though Wendlinger has gone way. It was very, very close for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. We're with Häkkinen now, and you may soon start to see the Ferrari come into sight. No, you won't, because Häkkinen at the present moment is lapping about half a second slower than Nicola Larini's Ferrari in 2nd place. And Katayama is now 4th, Fittipaldi is now 5th, Morbidelli is now 6th, Wendlinger, as a result of that tyre stop, has gone down to 7th, and he's only 6 seconds ahead of Martin Brundle, who is 9 seconds ahead of Damon Hill in 9th position, with Frentzen to make up the top 10 in the second Sauber, 14 seconds behind Damon Hill. It's getting to be close behind race leader Michael Schumacher, who, if he just keeps going in the reliable Benetton, looks as though he has the San Marino Grand Prix in his grasp.
It's a very good result indeed, a very good performance from Katayama.
Häkkinen to the pits now. Häkkinen in 3rd position, and I expect to see this would be really interesting and significant. Yukio Katayama moving up into 4th position. Yeah.
Very good stop from Häkkinen there. That is the final McLaren pit stop. Certainly the final McLaren scheduled pit stop there is 2nd of 2. And Katayama indeed going very well indeed, saying that there's been a lot of development from Tyrrell, that they are now involved this year with Jean-Claude Migeot, the aerodynamicist who worked indeed with me when I was at Tyrrell in 1989, having set up an independent development research company, Fondamental, and indeed the aerodynamic development of the Tyrrell is being carried out and has been carried out to such good effect by Jean-Claude Migeot's Fondamental operation in conjunction with Harvey Postlethwaite and the engineers in Italy.
So as you watch the Ligier, we're on now lap 39 with Michael Schumacher leading the race, and there is news from Steve Ryder in the pit lane.
Yes, it's news from the hospital, and it's done absolutely nothing to lift the spirits here in the pit lane. The first indications from the Maggiore Hospital in Bologna that Ayrton Senna is in an extremely grave condition. The report is of a grave head injury. Ayrton Senna is currently in a coma. We understand from the hospital that for a while his heart stopped. He was put on a respirator. His heartbeat has now been restored, but his condition remains extremely grave. Senna, who went off in that high-speed crash at Tamburello, the second attempt to start this race. And the official word from the hospital is that his injury is extremely grave and Ayrton Senna is in a coma. Also got details of an incident that you may have seen at the start of the original race, the first race, when a wheel from J.J. Leto's car appeared to go into the crowd at the main grandstand, and reports confirmed that a policeman and 8 spectators were injured in that incident, none of them seriously. Policeman and 8 spectators injured when that wheel of J.J. Leto's went into the crowd. But the news of Ayrton Senna is what is dominating the thoughts down here in the pit lane. Ayrton Senna's condition extremely grave.
Awful news from Steve Ryder as Pierluigi Martini runs away from his Minardi, which he is now retired from the race and will be extracted from the sand trap by the crane. And with about 19 laps to go now, the San Marino Grand Prix comes to a close, which I'm sorry to say everybody will be very glad to see. It has been a most unhappy meeting in so many ways in the practice and now in the race. And the race is led by Michael Schumacher as you watch the McLaren Peugeot of Martin Brundle coming into the pit lane. And the race order on lap 40 with 19 laps to go as Martin Brundle comes into the pits is Schumacher leading Nicola Larini by 35 seconds. Larini is some 19 seconds of Yukio Katayama, which in different circumstances we would have regarded as a quite magnificent achievement. And you can see Martin Brundle has stalled his engine in the McLaren Peugeot as he tried to get away. I think he may have misunderstood the signal from the lollipop man in the front. He's gesturing them to get his engine going. And we're on lap 41 now. Schumacher 35 seconds ahead of Larini. That is the German in the Benetton Ford. Katayama 3rd, Fittipaldi 4th, Morbidelli 5th, and Häkkinen in 6th position.
The McLaren there using a different sort of clutch control, of course. Now that the McLaren does not feature a clutch pedal on the floor, the clutch is operated by the driver's fingers with a lever behind the steering wheel, behind both sides of the wheel. And clearly the control of that is not as familiar, certainly, as using a pedal. Schumacher there, using the standard version of the Ford Z-Tech engine. He used the development engine yesterday, Ford, continuing to try to push forward the barriers of the performance and increase its performance towards that of the Renault. And indeed, I chatted to him to see how the performance of the Z-Tech compared to the HB engine he ran last year, and he said there was a difference. It revs 1,000 RPM more, which must put it over 14,000 revs, which is a great deal for a V8 engine. It's a very efficient engine like its predecessor, although clearly some way yet off the horsepower figures of the Ferrari and the Renault.
If Michael Schumacher wins this race, and we're watching the Ligier there pursued by one of the football cars, that of Gianni Morbidelli, who is in 7th place. As I say it, Morbidelli rolls to a standstill. He is out of the race, and that will mean to say that Frentzen moves up into a 7th position on aggregate. But as I was saying, if Michael Schumacher wins this race, it will give him limited satisfaction to have won it in the very unhappy circumstances that obtain here at Imola at the present moment. It would give him another 10 points in the World Championship, and Rubens Barrichello, who is second in the championship, is not racing. Damon Hill, who is equal third with Berger, who is retired, only had 6 points, and Hill is not in the points at the present moment. Jean Alesi, who's in 5th position in the championship, isn't here today. In fact, the only man in the top 6 in the championship, who is Christian Fittipaldi, on a mere 3 points compared with Michael Schumacher's 30 if he wins this race, and Fittipaldi is in 4th place now. So if this race runs to a conclusion in the order that it is now, as far as the leader is concerned, Michael Schumacher would have increased his substantial World Championship lead to a massive World Championship lead.
Schumacher comes up to lap Frentzen, so he's lapped up to 8th place now. We saw earlier the Ferrari of Larini. Larini really going extremely well. He's lapping as quickly as anybody, bar Schumacher. And bear in mind too that he's still got a pretty heavy fuel tank. We know that his strategy, the Ferrari strategy, was only to stop once. There's Schumacher going by Frentzen, just to stop once. So that means that he's carrying, must be 130, or was carrying immediately after his stop, 130 litres of fuel. So a very good performance from Larini.
We expect this race to run to 58 laps on aggregate, 5 from the first leg. It stopped on the 6th leg, and on the 6th lap, I'm sorry, and 53 laps from this second leg. And we're on lap 43 at the moment. So there are 15 laps left, with Michael Schumacher a very comfortable and commanding 40 seconds ahead of the Ferrari of Nicola Larini that you are looking at as he makes his way up to the Variante Alta. Yukio Katayama is in 4th position because now Mika Häkkinen has moved up to 3rd place. Indeed, the aggregate positions are changing by the second on the 43rd out of 58 laps. It's Schumacher, Larini, Häkkinen. Wendlinger is now only 2 seconds behind the McLaren Peugeot of Mika Häkkinen, and only 3 seconds ahead of Yukio Katayama, who has been displaced from 3rd. In fact, there is the Japanese driver in the white Tyrrell, and you can see behind him he has Mika Häkkinen, who is 3rd on aggregate. We're riding with the Finnish driver now, young 25-year-old Mika Häkkinen from Helsinki, although he lives in Monaco at the present moment, and he's closing up on the much improved Yukio Katayama, who got himself a pretty unenviable reputation last year of spinning out of more races than he finished in. But this year, in the notably advanced and improved new Harvey Postlethwaite designed Tyrrell Yamaha, the Japanese driver is showing that he's a very mature, and for his age, capable driver.
Now with 44 laps of the race now gone, Schumacher is the only driver of those in the first 4 that has got to make a further pit stop. Larini, we know, has made his last one, as has Häkkinen. Häkkinen's made his second, and Wendlinger just going for a one-stop routine. So Schumacher should be in the pits any minute now.
Here he is, as you say, Jonathan. Schumacher comes into the pits for another fuel stop, and out very quickly indeed. And since he had a 43-second lead over Nicola Larini, and he's only got 14 laps left to go, that will be Michael Schumacher's last planned stop, and he would hope not to be making any unplanned stops. As you watch Katayama coming up to the Variante Alta, pursued by Häkkinen, and they are closing up on Johnny Herbert, who is a lap behind them and about to be lapped again in 12th position. And the race order on lap 45 is Schumacher leading Larini by 33 seconds. Häkkinen, that you're looking at in the red and white McLaren Peugeot, is third, and behind Häkkinen you can see Wendlinger, and that's how close the battle is for third position in this race and on aggregate. Wendlinger in the Sauber is in third position. That's the black car with the yellow mirrors, and we're with Häkkinen now. In front of him, it's still Katayama, who's staying ahead on the track, although he's 2 places behind him on aggregate. Race order: Schumacher, Larini second, Häkkinen third, and we're with him. Wendlinger is fourth, just behind us. In 5th position is Katayama, just in front of the McLaren because of the aggregate situation. And in 6th place is Christian Fittipaldi, and up to 7th has come Damon Hill.
Well, the person that Häkkinen's got to worry about is Wendlinger behind. He's some 32 seconds behind Larini, but Wendlinger is just 1.9 seconds behind, and Häkkinen, currently in 3rd place, will have to work carefully, particularly with the traffic that is around at the moment, to make sure that Wendlinger doesn't slip by.
And the McLaren Peugeot has yet to finish a Grand Prix, because both Häkkinen and Brundle retired in Brazil. Brundle through the collision ultimately, although his flywheel had come off just before that, which would have taken him out of the race in any case, of course. And they both retired from the Pacific Grand Prix. So if Häkkinen brings his car home, it will not only be the first time that the McLaren Peugeot has finished a race, it will be the first time it has finished in the top 3.
Now, Damon Hill is now the fastest car on the circuit. He's lapping in 1 minute 25.6. He's just 13 seconds behind Christian Fittipaldi in 6th place, so it looks like a points finish is going to be on for Damon Hill.
Yeah, Katayama is the man that's interesting me at the moment. He may be in 5th position on aggregate, but he's in front of Häkkinen, who is 3rd. He's ahead of Wendlinger, who is in 4th position, and he's staying ahead. Now, Häkkinen may not have the horsepower in the Peugeot, but it's an indication that the V10 Yamaha engine, which has been worked on a great deal by the Yamaha technicians and, of course, by John Judd's engine developments company in Rugby, and it's producing results because the Japanese driver doesn't have anything like the experience that Mika Häkkinen has got.
Now, Mika Häkkinen is going to need to get by. That's Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell just ahead. He's about to lap Blundell. Again, he's keeping a good distance behind. He's just pulled out a second, in fact, on Carl Wendlinger behind. Meanwhile, teammate to Blundell, Katayama, really maturing very well this year. A driver who we were far more familiar with seeing off the circuit, normally having spun harmlessly off last year, but really driving very maturely indeed in 1994 with undoubtedly a much better car.
12 laps to go. We have no further information on Senna's condition, and we'll obviously let you know as soon as we get any ourselves. But on the 47th lap out of 58, Schumacher has now got the race totally under his control. He's 32 seconds ahead of Nicola Larini. It looks as though Ferrari are going to have a 2nd place finish for the 2nd race in succession, which will lift their hearts. But you have to temper that by saying, as you watch Damon Hill going very fast indeed, that Larini is a full 30 seconds behind Benetton's Michael Schumacher.
Damon just 6 seconds behind Fittipaldi now. Fittipaldi in the footwork in 6th place, who himself is 4 seconds behind Katayama. Now, another benefit that Tyrrell have actually got here for the first time is this automatic downshift button. Before, they had to, or the drivers had to operate the flipper behind the steering wheel to change the gears both up and down. Now, of course, the teams still need to keep changing gears up using the flipper, but changing down, they are permitted to use a button if that triggers an automatic sequence of downshifts. These semi-automatic gearboxes do help the engines. They help the engines because they prevent the driver from mis-shifting and missing a gear. Used to be the classic way of buzzing an engine, which means over-revving an engine. And these engines only have to be over-revved by perhaps 500 revs and they can brake.
Well, Damon Hill is lapping 3 seconds faster than, well, he's now lapping 4 seconds faster than Katayama. And Damon Hill is just out of the points. And the gap between them is enough. Oh, what's that wheel off? It's a Ferrari, and it's not. It's a Minardi, and it looks to me as though there's been an accident in the pit lane now. It's a Ferrari mechanic that's on the ground. I'm guessing because I didn't see it happen, but it's clear that a wheel came off the Minardi, which may well have happened as a result of a collision in the pit lane. But now this is the last thing that the San Marino Grand Prix needs, and there's chaos in the pit lane. There's a danger of cars coming in at high speed. And well, that is a Minardi. I can't see whether it's Alboretto's Minardi. And there's Gerhard Berger in his overalls.
Yes, it might be in fact that the right rear wheel clearly has come off the car, possibly because it was not put on properly with these very rapid pit stops. There's a big responsibility on the mechanics and the team and the person controlling the pit stop to make sure that the wheels are all on and done up tightly before the car accelerates hard out of the pit lane.
I'm guessing, but it wouldn't surprise me at all in view of the way this race has gone and the chaos in the pit lane and the fact that there's a stretcher there to see the race stopped. It's run the mandatory distance of 3/4 in order to enable full World Championship points to be awarded, although that is a bit irrelevant now too. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the red flags come out to stop one of the most unhappy races it's been my ill fortune to watch in my entire Grand Prix viewing career. And on lap 50 now in this 50 lap race, as you see the medical attendant come up to the stricken Ferrari mechanic. Michael Schumacher is 35 seconds ahead of Ferrari's Larini, who is about 40 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen in third place, who is 2 seconds ahead of Wendlinger in fourth. Katayama is 11 seconds behind Wendlinger, and he's fifth. Katayama. Sixth is Fittipaldi, and there is still 6 seconds between Fittipaldi, the last points scorer at the moment, and Damon Hill, who is in 7th place. And Schumacher has now lapped everybody up to, but not including, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is in 8th position. And the problem in the pit lane, as you can see, continues.
And back on the circuit, we've got Martin Brundle in 9th place, and 11th place is Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell, with Johnny Herbert in the Lotus, having a difficult time with the Lotus back in 12th place. Lotus still relying on their 1993 car with the older version of the Mugen, which is some 45 kilos of the car, 45 kilos overweight.
Well, Wendlinger was held up by Katayama there, who had been passed by Mika Häkkinen, and Katayama will know he's in 5th position, that he's fighting for places, and he's probably not all that aware of the aggregate situation, and he knows that Wendlinger is one of the men against him, and he would be anxious not to let him get past. But Wendlinger has, and is now attacking Mika Häkkinen on lap 51 in what should be a 58-lap race. And as that caption shows you, the two men that you are watching, who are 3rd and 4th, are separated by just over 2.5 seconds, they being both team members who are looking for a 1st, 3rd place for their current teams, because McLaren Berger have yet to finish on the rostrum, the top 3 places, as have Sauber. Sauber had a 4th place here last year when JJ Leto took that position, fourth position for the Sauber Ilmor team as it was then. It's the Sauber Mercedes team now. We're on lap 51, coming up towards the closing stages of it, and that is a replay of what happened. You see Michele Alboretto's car with the wheel bouncing off. It's obviously, I really don't know, but I would think it's more likely that the wheel wasn't put on than that he hit something. If you remember, Nigel Mansell had a similar problem in the Portuguese Grand Prix the year before last, when the wheel nut wasn't put on properly. The wheel came off as he was exiting the pit lane, and it takes virtually no time at all for a car to build up to 100 miles an hour. That is De Cesaris, who has retired from 10th position in the closing stages of this unhappy race.
Interestingly, De Cesaris is the most experienced driver in Grand Prix, although you wouldn't believe it looking at that. He's finished, or certainly started, 190 Grand Prix in his career. He's been off throughout the winter, having driven for Tyrrell last year, and was drawn into the Jordan team after the Eddie Irvine suspension, and has had a difficult time. The Jordan team have had a very difficult time too, with De Cesaris being in that position. He crashed in testing at Mugello, and here we have a replay.
Yes, you saw the wheel fly off Alboretto's car. I hope I'm not maligning the team when I suggest that the wheel may not have been put on properly, but it didn't. It's not a situation where you would expect him to hit another car forcibly enough to remove a rear wheel. And there are now only 12 cars running out of the 25 who started this race.
No, I certainly agree there, Murray. There is nothing in the pit lane that can be hit that would certainly cause a wheel to come off, apart from the pit wall, and then it would have been the other side. But De Cesaris, he crashed in testing at Mugello, he crashed in practice yesterday, and he's also, of course, gone off the track again here today. And that's Damon Hill,
who is now in the points in 6th position on aggregate. So this would move him up to second equal in the World Championship with Rubens Barrichello, both on 7 points. If Damon stays where he is now, he might actually catch Fittipaldi on aggregate, because there is only 1 second between them, and Damon Hill is lapping 2 seconds a lap faster than Fittipaldi. In fact, I think there's little doubt at all that Damon would finish in 5th position. I can't see him catching Wendlinger, because there's 14 seconds between them, and Damon is only lapping about 1 second faster than Wendlinger in a race which, if my mathematics are correct, has only got 6 laps to run, including the one that we're on now. And Michael Schumacher is now up to Damon Hill, who is in 6th place. Michael having lapped Yukio Katayama, who is in 7th. And the German really is now just maintaining his race rhythm. He's not looking for any histrionics. He's not looking to break any records. He just wants to keep his rhythm going. His rhythm being a lap in about 1 minute 25 seconds, which is faster than everybody, even though he's got a 43-second lead. And I would expect him soon to catch and pass 6th place man Damon Hill.
It certainly is that. It certainly is a lot faster than anybody, but it's still some 3 seconds slower than he went in qualifying, and with just 6 laps to go here, he can be expected to have a pretty low fuel load. So he's probably, by his terms, relatively cruising, and with a Grand Prix car, with a Grand Prix driver at the wheel, once one is 1 or 2 seconds off maximum pace, it really is pretty straightforward to drive at that speed. It does not feel particularly quick to the driver. He's very much coasting along and pacing himself, and I know that Benetton team had a little bit of a concern about reliability here when the Zetec engine first came out. They came testing here and had 1 or 2 problems with it, as one would have expected, but they've certainly done their homework. They've got it together. This is a stressful circuit for engines, but he certainly seems to be showing no signs whatsoever of any problems at the moment.
You watch Nicola Larini, who is indeed going to bring a Ferrari home in 2nd place for the 2nd race in succession if he can keep it going for another 5 laps, including the one he's on. That is Häkkinen, who is 3rd. Damon Hill has made the fastest lap of the race so far, 1.8 seconds inside the previous lap record, and he's now up into 5th position, so he's going to get at least 2 World Championship points if he finishes where he is now at worst, and that means to say that he would move up to 2nd position in the World Championship ahead of the absent Rubens Barrichello. That's Wendlinger, who is in 4th place, still chasing Mika Häkkinen, and the stretcher is still in the pit lane.
Sauber, interestingly, or rather Ilmor, the Mercedes-Benz engine manufacturer there, they tried pneumatic valves for the first time of the engine's development on Friday. They had a few problems with it, and it's been reverted back to the older specification engine with metal springs for valve springs. The benefit of the pneumatics being that one can rev an engine higher, and of course the higher you can rev an engine, the more power it can produce.
And it looked to me like a Lotus mechanic, not a Ferrari mechanic, judging by the overalls, and I noticed that there were Lotus mechanics as the ambulance comes into the pit lane in attendance as the stretcher was wheeled away. Well, I think as far as everybody here is concerned, the finish of the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix cannot come a second too soon. Wendlinger is now going quicker and is up into 4th position. Down to 6th on aggregate has gone Damon Hill. This is a replay of what happened with that bouncing wheel. You see the crowd running as Alboreto offline by virtue of the fact that his wheel had come off, and he would probably, even though the Minardi team is only about 2/3 of the way down the pit lane, be getting on towards 90 miles an hour at least as he exited the pit lane. Fittipaldi retires. He was in 5th position, which will help Damon Hill. Out goes the footwork Ford, and of course that's awful news for them because Gianni Morbidelli, who was going so well, has also retired. In fact, I'm just trying to work out, there's about 10 cars left in the race now. There's only 10 less than 2 laps behind race leader and potential winner Michael Schumacher, who is coming home to complete another lap, closing up on Yukio Katayama, who is now down in 7th position.
A great shame for the footwork team there, who are still using the older Series 7 spec HB engines. It looked like Morbidelli had some kind of technical problem. There didn't seem to be any evidence of the car having done any more than just pulled off, whereas there for Fittipaldi, almost certainly he maybe braked too late, lost control under braking and ended up spinning off into that sand trap. So probably a driver mistake for Fittipaldi.
Lap 57. 2 laps to go. That'll be including this one, so it's this lap and the next one. And as I said, there will be a lot of thankful hearts that this Grand Prix is finishing, and I think it's the first time I've ever said that in the vein that I'm saying it now. As you watch Nicola Larini coming through to complete the lap, chasing Michael Schumacher, now 50 seconds behind him. And as you see from the caption, we are indeed, if they just go the distance remaining, going to have a Ferrari in 2nd place again, a Benetton winning a race for the 3rd time in succession this year. And remember that Schumacher won in Portugal last year, so Benetton would have won 4 of the last 6 races. And interestingly for statisticians and historians, this would be the 6th consecutive race that the Ford V8 engine that so many people said wouldn't hold a candle to the V10s and the V12s has won an astounding record. Schumacher is now on his last lap. Larini is 52 seconds behind him. Häkkinen is about 15 seconds behind Larini, but only 3 seconds ahead of Wendlinger, who is 4th. Katayama has been lapped, is 5th. Damon Hill is 6th in the points and a lap behind, ahead of Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Sauber in 7th place. Martin Brundle is 8th, so it really does look as though both the McLarens are going to finish with their Peugeot engines.
It's been a particularly impressive performance from Häkkinen. in the McLaren, and the Peugeot engine has stood the pace here. It's been hot, it's survived well, and it looks like to be the first time we're going to see a McLaren Peugeot on the rostrum with third place, but it's not been anything other than a dreadful weekend for everybody involved, and it's going to be a major black mark on Formula One, or certainly in the history books, for a long time.
Michael Schumacher comes down to the Rivazza for the 58th time, and he's nearly a minute now ahead of the second place man as he comes home, certainly to win commandingly and with a great deal of credit in very difficult circumstances, his third successive Grand Prix. He exits the Traguardo, and the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix has been won by Michael Schumacher, but in circumstances that I'm sure he will not be at all happy about, and that is no reflection on him, his ability or his car. Nicola Larini will please the thousands and thousands of his countrymen who are watching here at San Marino, because, as I said, this is the second Grand Prix in succession that a Ferrari will have finished in second position, because Gerhard Berger was second at the AIDA circuit at the Pacific Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, and Larini comes into the closing stages of the last lap now, just this left-hander and the right-hander before he sees the checkered flag. It's going to be closer for third position as Larini finishes second, between Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren Peugeot, who looks as though he is about to create history by getting the first rostrum position for the Anglo-French partnership. There he is, and that is the distance he beats Carl Wendlinger's black Sauber by for third position. So Hakkinen third, Wendlinger in fourth. Katayama has already finished his race because he's lapped in a meritorious fifth position for the second time this year. Damon Hill gets one World Championship point for sixth position in the second Williams Renault, which lifts him to second position in the World Championship, equal with the absent Rubens Barrichello. Michael Schumacher naturally pleased. He's had as hard a time as anybody as Christian Fittipaldi rides back on the side pod of Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Sauber Mercedes. Well, there's no point in trying to pretend that it has been anything other than a very, very unhappy San Marino Grand Prix weekend. But the one piece of good news I can give you is that Michael Schumacher has won, that Damon Hill has finished in sixth position, sandwiching between them Nicola Larini second, Mika Hakkinen third, Wendlinger fourth, and Yukio Katayama in fifth place.
And that's the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix. The history books will show that victory for Michael Schumacher, but it will also record one of the bleakest weekends that world motorsport has ever seen, a catalogue of tragedy and disaster. We had the death of the Austrian Roland Ratzenberger yesterday. The afternoon here began with a start line accident, a tyre into the crowd, although the injuries there, we understand, were slight. We've had a rogue tyre down the pit lane. We don't yet know the extent of the injuries there. But we've also got Ayrton Senna, one of the greatest talents that Formula One has ever seen, currently lying in a Bologna hospital in a coma with what's reported to be grave head injuries. As you can imagine, nobody wants to volunteer an opinion or an emotion down the pit lane here until the time is absolutely right, and the time certainly isn't right now. We're not going to push them into that. Suffice to say that when it is appropriate, we'll have further details from Imola before the end of the